All right, so right now we're beginning in typography. You're going to illustrate a word, and we saw some words yesterday that were really, really cool. And I want to make sure that you realize that you can take a moment to type in, this happens to be a Google search. And on this Google search, sorry it's taken so long. On this Google search, you will find that there were some really, really great black text base with some little quirky additions that made them feel like whatever that word was, okay? So whatever that word was, and we saw like, you know, of course now it's going to take 10 years to come on. Hold on. There we go. So we saw smile with almost like using the little emoji. Clock with that O and the L nested together. You've got all these possibilities, and the only possibility I would like you to stay away from is just finding one and copying it. I really want to make sure that you guys are pushing yourself to gain inspiration from something that's out there, but to make sure that it is yours. So make sure you keep that in mind. Really want to make sure it's yours. You can look, oh, hello Sunday. Well, maybe I'm going to do one on Monday. Because Monday is like, or maybe I want to do one on Friday. What can I do with Friday? You can take, again, all of those. Oh, I better get away from that one. You can take all the ideas and kind of run with it, okay? So with that, what I've asked you is I've asked you to start off with a document, and hopefully by now, you know when you open up Photoshop, you're going to go ahead, File, New. And in this case, we're going to change the document size a little bit from where we were with the last one. And this one's going to be 8 inches tall by 10 inches wide. Those of you that do not follow the proper dimensional directions, that is a very easy way to lose out on points. So you do want to make sure that you are following it to the letter. We're at 10 inches on the width and 8 inches on the height with a resolution of 300. And then we're going to go ahead and say, okay. And your document should look like a landscape rectangle. It should be laying down, not tall. If in doubt, please ask. Now, also, I want to make sure that you realize if you need to deviate from this shape, I'm going to highly discourage it on this particular project. I want you to maintain the idea of what it is we need as an 8 by 10. Okay? So, text tool. We may have spoken, and some of you know a little bit about this text tool. You've got a few ways of using it. Generally, you're going to use a horizontal type tool. But if you click and hold, you'll find a vertical type tool and then a horizontal and vertical type mask. We're really just going to function with the regular type tool right now, just the horizontal type tool. Please be patient with it. It will take a minute for it to come up, but as soon as it's done, you're going to see that I'll get like a bracket on here. Now, for this particular project, I will probably put all of my letters on different, like I'm not going to actually spell out the whole word smile. I would do one with an S, one with an M, one with an I, one with an L, one with an E in different text boxes, which will allow me to edit them properly instead of editing the other letters I don't want touching. So right now you can see that I've got this little icon that comes up. And I can click and I can begin with a text box. Of course, you've got all these fabulous options for fonts. Let's see, I'm trying to decide really quick. I'm going to pick something that's kind of bold, just so that I can make sure that you can see. I'm also going to bring my font size up. Please know that they only go up to 72 right here, but you can type in a number there. So if I wanted a 100 point font, I type in 100 and enter, and then I can go ahead and start typing. Now, you also want to make sure that you have black. In this case, it looks black, but it is a navy blue. I can go ahead and make sure that that's on black. All the way down in the bottom left corner, I can select OK. You can see when I highlighted it, it turned a little bit yellow, but now it's cleared up to black and white. So that is perfect. So I can then make that smaller. I can click off of it to accept, or I can click off onto the move tool to accept it. Now I go back to my text. Go ahead and click another one. There's my next. I'm going to go to my move tool. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to put it into place. Now I remind you, a guideline here would be fabulous. On the horizontal, if I do I'm going to do it a little bit under halfway. So if this is 50%, I'm going to go maybe 55%. And the reason is because my letters will take up space above that line, and that will keep it in that 50% range. Okay, I click on my E. Okay, if it's the same letter, I can just either make another one by clicking the text box and typing it, or again, don't forget, go on that layer that you need and hit Control J or duplicate layer. I've got an E copy, put that into place. Okay, I'm going to go ahead now, create another text box, D, click off of it, on. There's my next one. Scooch that over a little bit and scooch that. Notice I'm using you'll notice my mouse is not moving. I'm actually using my keyboard arrows. Once I have it in place, I'll use my keyboard arrows to make sure that it's nicely placed. Okay, I'm sure by now you probably know what word I'm going for. You got it. Go back to here. I was inspired this morning by the eye drop sitting on my counter. Okay, again, I get it roughly in place and I use my keyboard arrows to place it. Now I'm going to show you how to select multiple layers. Notice I'm not nicely centered. For this design, I want to have it nicely centered. For yours, you may find that it works well off center. That might add to whatever it is that you're showing me all about. Okay, so in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and add a new guide at the 50% vertical. 50% vertical, so I know that that's my center. Now I've got all my layers here. If I click on the first one that's in blue, now again, double clicking pulls up a layer style menu. You want to make sure that you just cancel out of that. We don't need that. Just a single click, just make sure it's in blue. Scroll all the way to the bottom, not your background layer though, all the way to the bottom. Hold the shift and click on it. And you're going to see that it's going to select all the layers in between at one time. I'm on the move tool, which means I can then go ahead and bump this over. Okay, so I want to balance it with 3 letters because I counted. I have 3 letters on the left, 3 letters on the right, and then my D will be splitting the difference. Nudge it into place, and then I can go ahead and get started moving. Now is when I'm going to decide, first of all, do I need to size anything differently? Same thing, if I want to bring that size up, I'm going to select all of them. Again, click on the first one, shift, click on the last one, and I can transform it now. I can go ahead and free transform or Control T. You're going to see I get a box around there. Say my 100, I thought it would be perfect, but I really actually want it to be bigger. Or for some of you, maybe it's a word that implies your letters are really tall. You can transform them and actually stretch them. That's a way that you can customize a font. You can also make them very short and squat if that's kind of what you're needing. So again, I'm getting it to where I need it to be. I go to my move tool. Oh, I need to apply the transformation. It'll remind you if you forget to accept it. And then I'm going to use my keyboard again to just nudge it into place. I've got my basis to get started. Now I'm going to start to work on some of these individual layers and start to work on what I have sketches of. And you're going to have some sketches down here. For example, turning one of these right here, maybe the bottom of this, into what looks like an eyelash. Maybe this is the bottom looking like an eyelash where I have the eyelashes coming off the edge of it. Maybe instead of the O being round, I make that look like an actual drop. Or maybe I'm going to come in with my move tool and also emphasize the drop. Again, by letter placement. So transforming your letters. I'm going to explain a couple of ways to do that. First of all, you can utilize a paintbrush or your, a lot of you are working with the tablets now, but you can utilize your paintbrush and you can actually draw elements into here. But you'll notice this big not sign, and this is really, really important, so make sure you see this. when I try to use my paintbrush, let's say I want to put eyelashes right here on, oh, wait, let me get on the right letter. Then we'll wait for the errors. I blink the letter on and off to make sure I've got the right one. That's it. So I go to use it and I get a message. It says this type layer must be rasterized before proceeding. Its text will no longer be editable. Rasterize this type? Please read your messages. In this case, for me to add any kind of drawings to it, I need to do something called rasterize it. Rasterize means turning it from an editable text layer to a picture of that letter. Okay? So again, it's like you taking a picture of someone's notes from your math class. You can read them, but you can't edit the notes. You can't add in your own notes. That's the same thing that rasterizing will do here. I can no longer edit that image in terms of like change the letter. In this case, that's not a big deal. In a big deal case, what I do is I copy the layer and I'll actually hide a text layer and then I'll rasterize the copy. That way I can kind of keep something preserved in case I realize later on, oh, my client wants me to add something in the text. It's not so bad. I don't have to redo it, that sort of thing. So in this case, I'll say yes. And hopefully you notice this went from a text layer with a T to a picture layer. Okay, it's still the same letter E. It still looks exactly the same. But now when I go with the brush, you'll see that it actually allows me to do that. Zooming in is super important. Control plus and Control minus are your friend. This double clicking on the hand or Control 0, another shortcut to get back to full screen. Okay, please zoom in and zoom out often. So mine's going to probably look kind of rough. I remind you keyboard shortcuts to make your brush larger and smaller. Your bracket keys, they're located right above your Enter key on your keyboard. Right bracket, left bracket. Please use that. That is one of the biggest time savers. It's like, nope, that's not good. Nope, that's not good. Nope, that's too big. Nope, that's not. It takes way too long that way. Okay? So you're going to go ahead and let's just pretend. Let's just pretend I'm doing a good job. I'm just going really fast. Doesn't look anything like an eyelid. Looks more like the ant is crawling, or the letter E is an ant. But let's say I'm going to work on that drop. I can either maneuver some brushwork in here and I can create some shapes. We worked with some shapes in our previous project, and you'll know that you've got your rectangular and elliptical marquee. And some of you discovered that there are some additional shapes inside of your custom shape tool. So if you look at the custom shape tool and you go up to your shapes and you go to your drop down, you're going to find a variety of shapes. There's also a number of other shapes inside of this little drop out menu here. Click on it. Let's just cancel. Click and then look at them. Select one of them. It says replace current shapes with shapes from objects, and I'm going to say OK. So these are the shapes that come in with my objects. Let's go to nature. Again, say OK. There's a drop right there. So let's say I'm going to go ahead and let's just put that back in. I'm going to go ahead and make a drop. I'm going to go ahead and move that because later on I can hide that O. All right, so it's in a drop already. And in that drop, I can then start to work a little bit more. But notice it's now a shape layer. It uses, when you have an original and you've got this little side secondary look, that is a specialty layer. This happens to be a shape layer. Once you're happy with it, you can rasterize it to turn it into one layer. And you do that by rasterizing the layer, and it becomes an editable object now. Okay? So once you've created your shape, it's probably a lot easier to rasterize it. Now at that stage, if I wanted to, I could come in, I can go with my lasso tool, and I can draw. Oh, that really skipped. So it's probably not going to look so hot. My mouse just skipped. But I can actually paint a little reflection in the side if I wanted to. Notice my O is still behind it. I'm going to turn off that O. So I can again manipulate these things. Now, another way that you guys can work on manipulating your text, again,